Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm going to try to keep you awake because we just finished lunch for many of us. Listen, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about my journey in authentic leadership. I spent the first 14 years of my life in Lima, Peru, before I came to the United States. It took 20 years before I started planning my first trip back to show my husband the country I grew up in. He was very excited to visit, especially because he wanted to stop by Machu Picchu, which was in his bucket list. And as he was making the plans, he asked me, "Hey, Maria, do you want to stop by the lookout at Machu Picchu?" And I thought, when did Peru build a lookout in Machu Picchu? So you see, in my head, this is what a lookout looks like, or something like this. So I asked my husband, "Are you sure a lookout?" And he said, "Yes, you can buy tickets with either access to the lookout or without it." So I thought, great idea, let's do it. A couple of weeks later, my cousin from Peru calls me and says, "I have a friend from New York. He's going to come visit. Can we go together?" I thought, perfect, here's my plans. He pauses and says, "Really? You are doing the lookout?" And I'm going, "Yeah, we're excited about it." He said, "Okay." So we get to Machu Picchu. And guys, it became very obvious as we were walking to the lookout that what I thought was a lookout and what we were about to do was very different. You see, this is Machu Picchu, and that's the lookout. That's right. That mountain is almost 9,000 feet above sea level. It took an hour and a half and 1,500 feet hike to get to the top. And you know what? No, you really can't see Machu Picchu that well from it. Some lookout. My cousin could not stop laughing at me, thinking, when I explained to him what I thought it was a lookout, his comment was, "Oye, qué gringa estás." And while funny, I have to tell you, it hit home. You see, for a long time, I felt like I wasn't Peruvian enough or American enough to fit in, or to be the type of person that I needed to be to achieve my goals and dreams. It actually took me a long time to understand that just being me is more than enough. We hear the saying, "Be yourself," all the time. As we develop as leaders, it is truly important that we be ourselves, that we be authentic, and that we bring who we truly are to the table. You're going to ask why. Well, because we live in a world in which the next generation of professionals crave authenticity. A Communications study shows that 75% of millennials are willing to take a pay cut to go work for a company that more closely aligns to their values. So this new generation wants to connect to their leaders. They want to know what they're about, their ideals, their goals, how are they going to impact the communities. And if you and I are going to be the leaders of the future, then we must inspire trust. Because without trust, we can't connect with this next generation. And candidly, we also need trust to motivate and encourage the existing generations. And when I think about building trust, I think of a professor of mine back in Harvard Business School, Dr. Francis Frey. Dr. Frey has a wonderful TED Talk called "How to Build or Rebuild Trust." And in it, she explains that there are 3 components to trust: empathy, logic, and authenticity. She says that whenever any of these 3 components are threatened, right, or if they're shaky, trust is threatened. So today I want to talk to you about these components of trust and how they relate to this sort of duality that I had growing up, my Peruvian heritage mixed with my American upbringing, and how to use the beauty of our authentic selves to become great leaders. So let's start with empathy, which is all about the other person. Guys, this is the most common wobble when it comes to building trust because we live in a world filled with distractions. And that makes it hard for the other person to believe that you're truly in it for them. Just yesterday, we heard from Kathy Besant, the CTO of Bank of America, And when somebody asks, right, what is this style flexing? If you remember, style flexing means you change your leadership style depending on the audience. She even told us, it's not about changing who you are. It's about adapting to who you're talking to. And she used the word empathy. You need to know what they need, what their success is about, and not just bring your own agenda. So when we think of distractions that might get in the way of empathy, and whether that's you being really focused on what you want to get done and not listening, or maybe you're looking at devices as you talk to somebody else, I found that there was something in my Latino background that actually was very distracting. Latin time. I grew up with a mother who was very well educated and successful in business, and she could not be on time for anything. I mean, we would sit in the car for hours, it felt like, with my dad and my brothers just waiting for her to come in. Now, my mom did not intentionally wait until the last minute, right, to get ready. She just had to take care of everything in the house before she would allow herself to get ready. You see, she had always been this incredibly selfless woman, and the need to care for others came before her, so she was late. Early in my career, similarly, I found that I lost track of time because I love talking to people. So I would say hello a little longer, or on the way to a meeting, I'd stop to somebody and talk to them in the hall. I wasn't intentionally late. I just prioritized people over time. But thankfully, a coworker of mine pointed out that when we are late, we infer that our time is more important than the one of the person we're meeting. And that resonated with me. So since then, I've tried to strike a balance between making sure I'm on time for meetings and appointments, but also giving myself time to talk to people. Because if I'm going to lose track of time, because I truly care about what's going on with others, then at least let me put a structure around it so that I don't offend anybody. And you know something? That honest desire to connect, to understand others, that unfortunately can give us a bad rep like Latin time, it's also a great tool to build true empathy. So let's make sure that we all have awareness of whatever elements in your background, in your style, that can create distractions for you in building empathy, but also understands the beautiful things that our background can also help us to build true, authentic empathy. The second element was logic. Dr. Frey says that we can divide this into two areas, okay? The quality of what we're saying, so think facts and data, and the way we communicate the logic. Now, traditionally, in the way we communicate, we do it one of two ways. Either we start with a great story and finish with the point, or you start with the point and use a story to build your case behind it. She recommends the latter, by the way. When it came to logic as an engineer, I was someone that naturally pivoted to data points. If my mom said, just trust your gut, I'd be like, sure. I know that I have a hunch that tells me something might be happening for a reason, but I always look to data to either validate or negate my hunch. My parents say that that's why they think I always was going to end up in some STEM or science career, because they're like, you always wanted facts behind statements. I think they were complaining about me questioning them, honestly. However, when it came to the communication of the logic, my Peruvian family used exaggeration as a natural way of communication. For example, I see a lot of people nodding their heads. The first house that I shared with my husband was right across the street from a large private acreage with dense foliage. I used to tell people, I live across a forest. And my husband said, some trees. But while exaggeration can make for great storytelling, it can also be a double-edged sword because it could be construed as lying. And there is no greater obstacle in building trust with others than if somebody thinks you're lying to them. So instead, aware of this natural tendency to exaggerate, I pivoted that tendency into something productive. like developing a style of storytelling in my business communication. I found that by sharing stories to complement the facts, to make my point, was well received by others. So, as technical leaders, I think that we all can relate to logic, but let's be aware how we gather the facts behind that logic and be intentional about how we communicate it. And finally, the last element of trust is authenticity. And guys, for a long time, the word authentic was a very complex subject for me. Because which authentic, right? The me at home that spoke Spanish, the me at school that was really studious and disciplined, or the one at work that was still trying to find their identity. And why did I have those questions? Because of the environment I grew up. You see, when I emigrated to the United States, we settled in Memphis, Tennessee. If you're not familiar with Memphis, it's home to the king. That's right, Elvis Presley. But it also only had 2% Hispanic or Latino population. I didn't grow up with a bunch of Latino professionals in Memphis that can give you an example of what I should be looking to be. And I certainly didn't have this amazing high-tech family, nuestra familia, that we have here. And I spent 20 years in Memphis. As a matter of fact, when people ask me where am I from, I usually answer Memphis. And after the look, that look, I have to amend and say, well, I grew up in Memphis, but was born in Peru, so you see, this is a true Southern accent. And that was the duality of my early life. There are so many wonderful elements to my Peruvian heritage that I love and adore. And there were so many that I thought did not fit in the American business culture. I spent more time trying to differentiate myself from what I thought were the typical stereotypes of people with my background, that I completely overlooked the advantages of what our background gives us. We speak 2 languages. We make friends easy. We're extremely resourceful. And we have great, deep sense of family and loyalty. But above all, I missed the most important fact, that everyone is different. Listen, an introvert, Latino or not, is going to recharge on their own. And an engineer, Latino or not, is going to solve problems using a logical approach. There are so many things that shape any one person. And as time passes, many experiences that evolve that person, then with time, it finally became obvious to me how to reconcile that Peruvian heritage, my logical mind, my strong ethics, my deep convictions, my logical approach, my direct speech, and that true Southern accent, into one authentic me. I became true to who I am, and I am now less likely to heed feedback, internally or externally, about muting any aspect that is core to who I am. Now, I'm not saying that you shouldn't improve yourself. That's not it. But you can't change who you truly are. Dr. Frey says that when we try to hold back something that is truly us, that people notice. And you know what? When someone thinks you're hiding something from them, then we're less trusted, less likely to be given stretch assignments, less likely to be promoted. Think about it. When you look at a leader and you see that they are genuine and transparent, don't you want to follow them? But when you look at a leader that might have different personas depending on a situation, how do you feel? So let's make sure that we remain authentic to the core values, right, that define who we are as we continue to grow personally and professionally. Now, I'm sure that there are many people out there that struggle with which version of themselves is the best version to bring forth to get the job or the funding or the promotion. They might think that they need to mute certain aspects of themselves to be able to achieve their dreams? Well, I'm looking at this room, and I don't see one person just like the other. I don't see one standard of leadership that is the leadership standard that can secure any one job or any promotion. Instead, I'm seeing a room full of wonderful, successful leaders that have worked hard, and they are better because of the experiences that you have undergone. And while we all have our Latino or Hispanic background in common, we are also all very different. That is true diversity. It's not just gender or race. It's the diverse experiences that are shaped by the communities in which we grew up and which will help us as we continue to grow to be leaders to serve those same communities. Now, I'm a factual person, so I'll tell you that there is no denying that diversity is good for business. In 2017, Delivering Through Diversity study by McKinsey showed that companies that have a greater ethnic and cultural diversity in their executive teams are 33% more likely to achieve industry-leading profitability. So the data backs up the hunch on this one. A diverse leadership team is really good for business. In close, I'm very grateful for all the experiences that have shaped who I am today. I'm also really grateful for the mentors and friends, family that will continue to shape who I will be in the future. I want to clarify that I do believe we should always look for ways to improve ourselves. But these days, I think more like polishing the true me into a better version. I still, for example, have a lot of passion for what I do, but I have learned to be slower to react. And I still love talking to people, but I have alerts on my phone, so I'm not late to meetings. And I still love to tell a good story, but I am mindful to be specific about details that I may have exaggerated on. At the end of the day, the more comfortable I became with me, it has allowed me to be more vulnerable with others. In turn, that has allowed me to create honest and authentic connections to others that has resulted in stronger and deeper relationships with peers and friends. My experience has taught me that when you become authentic, when you can drive greater trust, and by that you can drive stronger collaborators and sponsors and allies, and with whom you can then drive greater impact, because not one person can do any one thing on their own. The challenge ahead for us all now is that we need to give back to those communities that have helped shape who we are. And that may mean standing in front of others, being vulnerable, and telling a story, your story, so that others can know what is possible. For me, this woman engineer that grew up in Lima and Memphis with no connections to any corporation has been able to rise to be an executive at a Fortune 900 company. It took hard work, strong ethics, lots of discipline, lots of praying. It also took defining who I am. Understanding my Peruvian heritage can be an advantage, and polishing the many aspects of me that can help me become a better professional, a better leader, a better person. There were many wonderful leaders along the way that took a chance on me. And my commitment, and what I challenge you to do, is to take chance on others so that we can continue to fill this room with the leaders of the future. Push up and pull up, right? That same cousin, by the way, from Peru came this past Christmas to spend time with us in Dallas. I was getting his itinerary done, and so I said in Spanish, voy a printear tu vuelo. He started laughing again. He's like, printear es imprimir, prima, esta gringa. To which I smiled and said, You know me. I'm just me. Thank you.